Gentlemen, I have two questions for each of you, and Commissioner Pernetti, being that you're the visiting team, we'll start with you. This is such a bittersweet moment, celebrating a tremendous accomplishment orchestrated by Coach Amir, and then have to award the Coach of the Year honor to his family posthumously. How hard is this on both the American Athletic Conference as well as South Florida?
Well, I think for the conference, the thing that's remarkable about who Amir was and what he did was he was not in the conference for a long time. But the more people I've spoken to and the more I've understood what his impact has been, it was deep and permanent. It was almost like he was coaching in the league for 20 years. And that's what I think is special about this. I don't think this situation could be any harder on anyone other than his family. And when we first started to talk about, we felt compelled right away to be able to do something permanent to honor who he was and what he stood for because of this impact he had, not only on his own student athletes, but kids that competed against him, other coaches, people across the country. I reached out to Michael with this idea, and the first thing we agreed on was we just want to make sure that this is something that is okay with his family, that they would feel good about, because the last thing you want to do is do anything that some people are private about things like this. But we were really pleased to propose it and have it be really well received, and I think it's the least we can do. He's had a short-term permanent impact on the American, and he deserves to be honored in this way forever.
We're just so grateful to Commissioner Pernetti and to the American for bestowing this honor on Amir and the family and the whole staff. He handled it perfectly. We did talk to the family, and they're honored. Obviously, while it's been crushing for them, crushing for this whole community, it's certainly one that to see the impact he had, to see that being recognized beyond just even his basketball acumen, but to the impact he made on so many. I mean, to think about, so appropriate that we had a chance as an institution to name the student section after him. As you've seen, the student section crowd continues to be great because of what he kind of fed into them and this feeling of belief that came through our student body and our university and our Tampa Bay community. So this is a great honor. We appreciate the commissioner and the conference for doing this, and I know the family feels the same.
My last question, and thank you for your time today. The American is thriving, 6-2 in bowl games with football, winning the Bowl Challenge Championship. How important is it to set the table for the rest of the season, having a successful football program, which USF was a big part of with that 5 overtime win out in Hawaii? How important is it to set the table for the rest of your athletic programs?
I don't think I could have said it any better. I think the conference is thriving. And in a time where there's just complete chaos and instability around the entire industry, we're taking great pride in the fact that we've got focused institutions that care about trying to build something really special. And over the course of time, thinking about doing things differently. Like I've proposed a lot of really different innovative ideas, and I think in college in general, which has been an industry that's been risk averse, which is maybe why we arrived where we are, I was wondering how they'd be met. But universally in our conference, we have people that have vision, and we have really good leaders, led by this guy right here. And we need to do things differently. I don't know what all these monikers mean. I don't care. But I know the American sits in its own slot in the hierarchy based on what we've achieved together. I for one missed Santa Claus that night. I stayed up for the 5 overtimes of the USF game. I was the only one up in my house watching the end of that game. But football the season became unpredictable, which I think is a sign of a really well-rounded league. And I think what you're going to see in men's basketball and women's basketball down the stretch is you're going to see the same thing. Every time someone predicts what's going to happen next, something changes, and that's a sign of a really well-rounded conference.
Tim, just for clarity, you got the Honorary Coach of the Year award tonight. The Sportsmanship Award, that's for perpetuity. That's going to be in Amir's name henceforth, correct?
That's correct. So the Honorary Coach of the Year is for this year. And when we made that decision, and I said this to Michael, while that's for this year, we want to do something that's permanent. And these sportsmanship awards, it just couldn't have been a better marriage, because when we look at the words that describe who will qualify for this type of thing, you hear things like kindness, passion, integrity. And these are a lot of the words that I think people would describe Coach Amir to be. So it just couldn't have been a better marriage on that front. And it is important, like when you honor someone, those things tend to come and go. But we felt like in this case, given his impact on all of us at the conference, especially on the USF community, that it needed to be something that lasted forever.
Michael, I got a chance to speak to Jaden yesterday, and after speaking to him, it came across how well adjusted he was and how like strong he was, and you could tell that the young kid, like he didn't sound like a 20-year-old young man going through something that it's still hard to fathom. Can you talk about just like the overall support for just not just the players, but everybody involved with the program through such a unfortunate circumstance here?
Yeah, I was able to see your interview with him, and thank you for your outreach to the students. And I'm very proud of them and the leadership and the maturity that all of them, and certainly Jaden has shown. I mean, this is a tragedy that his family, that this program, that this university could have never fathomed. You're never prepared for it, and you kind of have to. There's no textbook on it, but it starts with caring. We put the emphasis on first the student athletes first, the staff, the family, and that's all you can do in times like this. Is you got to show how you care. You got to be there for them, and it's not something that just goes away, right? And so we're just awfully proud of them. We've as a community loved on them, and vice versa, and we're proud of how they've responded and continue to fight. They know every time they put on the South Florida uniform this year and beyond that they're remembering and trying to remember the lessons learned from Coach Amir and trying to do honor to what he taught them.
Michael, people are going to be telling stories about him for years to come. What do you want people to remember most about him?
Just the joy that he brought to every day, the impact that what you can accomplish every day is far beyond basketball. I think that's what we're all here celebrating. Is it was more than basketball. Granted, he did something here in 1 year that this school hadn't done in over 50 years of basketball in terms of winning a regular season title, and that shows his basketball acumen. But he did it by connecting people, and that's what was so special about that team last year. Is they played together, the community got behind him and everything else. But he did it with joy, right? We all miss his social media messages, his daily walks around campus that everyone kind of looked forward to, just to hear like, "Go Bulls! This is what's going on in his mind. This is how we can connect as a community, as a student body," and so for me, celebrate every day and look for ways to bring joy to people's lives. And his connectedness, it was well beyond, as I said, he went to games of every sport here. He was connected with student athletes well beyond the basketball program, and that's why when we wear this patch on every uniform, we have softball opening today. They've got it on their helmet. Everybody does, because even if they weren't his specific coach, even if he wasn't their specific coach, they all loved him dearly and appreciated the outpouring that he provided them too.
Michael, there's a story about Coach Amir went to a spring football practice and basically gave close to an hour speech to the players. They won't talk about it, which is great, but he was that kind of guy that influenced not just basketball, but all people, didn't he?
Players of all sports here saw what was happening, saw the magic that was happening last year and what he brought to them, and they all wanted a piece of it. And he was glad to share it, and he was willing to share that with anybody, and obviously gave his all to so many things. And the award that commissioners presenting him today in an honorary standpoint, as has been reported before, and I said it at a previous press conference, that's what's again part of the magic of him too. He said at this very seat that he was going to name that award after he was going to change the label to Staff of the Year from Coach of the Year. And then, as I said to you, I was in the as we walked down the stairs to a press conference when we announced Coach Fletcher as the interim coach. When we looked at the trophy there in the conference room in the men's basketball office, lo and behold, Staff of the Year.
Tim, is there anything that sticks out about USF or Amir as a whole over the last 12 months or so that just you kind of knew from maybe on the outside looking in a little bit that there was something special brewing here?
I think USF has massive potential. And it's interesting, before, when I worked on the outskirts of the college business, and then I was on a campus at Rutgers for a while and got to experience the growth even back in the early 2000s and what this place was capable of. I don't think there are many schools in the country right now that have the momentum that a place like USF has. And it has assets beyond what you see and what you could touch and what you could feel. Sitting in the market that it sits in, I think is a tremendous asset, not only for USF, but for our league. And while it's been a challenging year here, you know, I even said to Michael at one point, I'm like, when your name comes up on my phone, like I want to hear some good news once in a while. But the reality is there's a lot of good news here. In the midst of all this, you know, I know President Law, who's been an incredible supporter of the conference, who lost her husband this year, and what happened with Amir. But in the midst of all this, I was really flattered to be part of their stadium groundbreaking. You know, to see what Coach Golish is building and to see what Jose's done in women's basketball. This place has tremendous momentum and it has tremendous assets. And we will, as a conference, be proud to utilize as much of that as we possibly can, including what we think about doing in the future and, you know, what events should come through this market. It's something we all intend to capitalize on. But, you know, the long answer is USF has great momentum right now, and I think that starts with leadership. They have the right leadership in place. This guy's probably sick of me calling him, like we talk all the time, and I rely on him for, you know, a lot of counsel that is not always directly related to what's going on at USF.
Commissioner, you and I are both Jersey guys, which means we didn't expect things to happen last night, but last week. How hard is it for you to temper that enthusiasm and just say, okay, it's a building block process?
North or South Jersey?
Absolutely, south.
South?
Willingboro.
So you're basically from
North
Philly then, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I got
So,
my Eagles shirt on underneath.
well, you know the answer to the question, right? New Jersey people are notorious for having a complete and utter lack of patience, and I am in that category.
Totally.
And when I got back into this industry full time, when I started 8 months ago, I knew it was going to test, you know, every ounce of my patience, and it has over delivered, you know, on every front. But what I also would tell you is, when you're trying to innovate and you're trying to do things differently, you have to have some patience, and you also have to be willing to take people by the hand and kind of pull back the curtain and show them the light and educate them. Like a lot of what we're talking about with conference naming rights and private capital, like it's an education process. I'm not going to make the assumption everybody in this industry or everybody even in our room understands it, and maybe I need to understand it a little better. But patience is, with me generally, is hard to come by. I'm trying to, you know, pace myself at times, but we're not going to let the pace of what happens in college sports at the pace that it does get in the way of us breaking glass and innovating in this conference.